Good morning and thank you for joining me again on my electrified journey around Europe. What a late start. Them young folks were still wrapped in their sleeping bags, but I figured it was time for me to move on and see if I could catch a ferry off these rainy islands. Oh, right. It is 11:15 as I make my way off the campground. I will stop at Ramberg to charge a little. Battery is down to 16% and 67 kilometers of potential range. The drive to the ferry port is a bit more than 40 kilometers, and then I will still need to drive a little in Bodø to get to the charging station. When I charged at the Billcraft Avenue station the other day, I thought never again, too expensive. Turns out that in Ramberg they are actually on the cheaper side, as there were two 100 kilowatt chargers with a price of 4.8 Norwegian crowns per kilowatt hour, which was in stark contrast to the 6 Norwegian crowns at the Couplet charger. Well, that is what I thought. Had I checked closer, I would have seen that they still add MVA with the goods and services tax of 25% on top of it. And we are back at 6 Norwegian crowns per kilowatt hours. And guess, I am back where I started. Don't use Evany Billcraft because they are expensive. I added just under 17 kilowatt hours in 12 minutes, got the battery from 15 to 36% with now a range of 150 kilometers. The drive to the ferry port in Moskenes was very pretty but also very rainy. First I came to the single-lane bridges to Fredvang, which I drove across and back just for the experience and to see if there was a nice view on the other side, which there was none. Then I continued on very narrow roads between the sea on one side and steep mountains on the other. I had not reserved a place on the ferry because the contingent was already fully booked. Luckily, they only allow for 50% to be pre-booked, with the second half for drop-ins on a first-come first-served basis. When I arrived at the port, I got a space right at the very end of the third row, and that was a win. Once I was on the ferry, there were still empty spaces, but I don't know how many vehicles of the fourth row still made it on. A rainy goodbye to and from these beautiful and amazing islands. If you're still building a bucket list, add this one. The ferry journey is just over 3 hours long, and this is a very good point in time to talk about AutoPASS for Ferry. This is a service initiated by the Norwegian Public Roads Administration, and under its umbrella all ferry operators cooperate. For the clients, this means streamlined access to ferries and, more important, significant discounts. When you create an account and register your car, you are eligible for 50% discount as a private traveler and 40% as a business. For businesses, this is a prepaid service, and I'm assuming it is also for private travelers. Wind forwards in time, as I have already left Norway at the time of editing this video. I took 15 ferry crossings in total throughout Norway, with the Moskenes Bodø crossing, the one I've just been talking about before, being the most expensive one at 605, as in 605 Norwegian crowns, which is 55 euros. If you can half or almost half that price, why wouldn't you? I ended up paying 363 Norwegian crowns, which is 33 euros instead. These 15 crossings cost me as a business traveler, remember the 40% discount, a total of 1,475.60 Norwegian crowns, which is 135 euros. It could have been almost twice that amount, and I know that I'd rather use the money for something else. So, before you drive onto your first ferry, have a look at AutoPASS for Ferries. The link is in the description. Just outside Bodø is an Ionity charger, and considering the high electricity prices on the Lofoten Islands, that was my first destination. 9 kilometers from the ferry and 43.5 kilometers from the last charging station. I potentially would have made it there with 20 kilometers remaining range, a bit too risky. I charged the battery from 27 to 98% through an injection of 55 kilowatt hours while I was at the supermarket. Following this, I made my way south on the coastal highway 17 to Saltstraumen. While the best known maelstrom is between the two Lofoten Islands of Moskenes and Bodø, Saltstraumen is easier accessible, apparently the strongest and also a very beautiful yet chilling example of the force of nature. Here around 400 million cubic meters of water press in the space of 6 hours, i.e. the change of tides, through a 150 meter wide gap that connects Fjord with the North Sea. For more details you can read on hurtigruten.no and Wikipedia. Because tidal differences are greatest during a full or new moon, so is the amplitude at Saltstraumen. I was here an hour before peak with a new moon just a day ago, and it looked fantastic and scary at the same time. The currents can reach speeds of up to 40 kilometers an hour. Initially I had planned to stay at the Saltstraumen Camping, but at 500 Norwegian crowns that was a bit too pricey for my liking, so I headed down Highway 17, and after another 33 kilometers I saw a sign with a tent pointing into the sticks. I turned off and arrived at a very cute little campground right at the fjord. The new owners had just started 3 days ago and were in full gear cleaning up the place that had been dormant for several months after the previous owner had passed away. So, if you're in the area and are looking for a really nice place with friendly people that are full of energy and still have dreams, this is where you should stop. Kjellingstraum Camping, formerly known as Kjellingstraumen Fjord Camp. And this is it for this lovely day. Let us hence have a look at the map and driving data. I left the Lofoten surf camp at 11:15 and drove 4.8 kilometers to the charging station in Ramberg, charged expensively from 15 to 36%, which was 16.58 kilowatt hours, and then got on my way to Moskenes, a 34 kilometer drive through beautiful scenery that was mostly shrouded in clouds. I briefly stopped at the single-lane bridges to Fredvang. I caught the ferry to Bodø in this ad hoc attempt. Remember, they only make 50% capacity available for pre-booking and the rest is on a first-come, first-served basis at the pier. In Bodø, I stopped at the Ionity charger that is right next to a supermarket. So while the battery was charged from 27 to 98%, adding 55 kilowatt hours, I went to stock up on food, primarily fruit, vegetables and proteins. Then I drove 21 kilometers to Saltstraumen, where I was lucky enough to be able to view it without rain getting me wet. And finally, after turning down the expensive site at Saltstraumen Camping, I drove another 33 kilometers until I saw a campground sign and followed its calling to Kjellingstraum Camping, the first campground I actually felt at home. As always, you can find the driving data on my website www.travelectric.net. Tomorrow I will continue on along the coastline in southern direction. There are no specific places I have in mind until I get to Kristiansund and Åndalsnes, where I'm looking forward to driving the magnificent Atlantic Road again. And with that, I thank you for joining me again on this journey. I hope you enjoyed the stage and found it helpful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you again on our next stage. You have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye bye.